second.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show, Nicole and Craig Show. We are coming at you live from awesome studios. What do you guys call this place? What's this place called?
Yeah, some studio.
John Studios.
Okay, John Studio.
John Studios. We got our studio audience of Jared. Say hi, Jared. Hello. We got John. Howdy. John. We got Nick.
Hey there, guys.
All right. And we also have Kermit the Frog. Kermit?
AKA Nick.
Hey there, Miss Piggy.
So we got Kermit. Miss Piggy's not here. I don't know why he's asking for her, but whatever. And we got Nicole Hansen, the one and only.
As always.
And we've got myself, Craig. So we got a great show for you today. We're seeing a lot of stuff in NAR's literature, Indiana literature, and many other states talking about buyer love letters. And Nicole and I are here to break it down for you. Are they good? Are they bad? What are they? What's the pitfalls? What's the good? What's the bad? And the ugly. Go ahead, Nicole. Number 5.
I think the big thing is no discrimination ever, guys. Remember, we are licensed, fair housing laws, all those kind of things. We cannot discriminate. We cannot allow our clients to discriminate either.
Yeah.
That is a big license law violation for us. So if you do these love letters, you have to make sure that we are not discriminating in any way, shape, or form.
Well, here's where Nicole and I might disagree a little bit.
Truth.
Okay, first of all, I believe there should be no discrimination ever.
100%.
Okay, I believe that. In a perfect world, no one would discriminate anyone for any reason. I actually don't like that there's only 9 protected classes. I think there should be no discrimination whatsoever. Okay, but here's the thing. According to fair housing and all that kind of thing, there are 9 protected classes, I think?
Sure.
Let's just say it's 9.
Okay, sure.
So, don't discriminate whatsoever. But here's the thing. Is a buyer love letter necessarily discriminating? I don't believe it is. If you're telling a buyer, like if I go to, let's say I go to McDonald's and I want to order a cheeseburger, right? Let's say I just want one cheeseburger. As I walk up to the thing, they might reasonably assume I am a male. I am over 20.
What?
Or much older than 20.
Nowhere. What are you talking
No,
about?
my point is, should we just stop this right now? We're just kidding. We actually planned for this. But anyway, so here's the thing. Is that necessarily discrimination? Here's what they're worried about. I would call it, the word I like to use is entrapment, okay? If I say, oh, my buyer is, let's say it's one of the protected classes. My buyer is married with 7 kids. Okay, that would be familial status. That is a protected class.
Yep.
So if I give that offer to another agent, that other agent rejects that offer, or the seller rejects that offer, did they discriminate me based on that? The theory is, or the thought is, with what a lot of the guidance brought down from NAR and all these types of things, is yes, it could be used for that.
Sure.
It doesn't mean it is. It says it could be used for that.
Yes.
Many agents are afraid. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I think the topics I want to talk about is basically talking about how you can avoid that.
Can you speak up? I can't even hear you.
Really?
You better get fired up, Hanson.
I am fired up about this topic.
Okay.
All
She's
right.
fired up, everyone.
That's all I got.
All right. Is it necessarily discriminatory if you're the buyer's agent and the buyer says, I want to send a love letter to the seller? They won't say love letter, but you know what I mean. I want to send a letter stating why we want this house. As an agent, you should not, in my opinion, dissuade them from doing that.
I mean,
is that too big? Is that a big word?
No, I think our job is to do what the buyers want, right? And then it comes to the listing agent. Like, is there something in the letter that is discriminatory or something that would, sway your sellers either way, right? And this is kind of where Craig and I disagree. Like, I take the email as NAR sent out as you cannot send love letters, right? As we call them, love letters. But, I think that kind of rolls into number 4 is ask your managing broker. Are love letters okay?
Number 4, sorry.
Right?
Jumped the gun on that one, Hanson.
Sorry. But I think we kind of had to roll into that. Like, are love letters okay? I think you need to talk to your managing broker, figure out if it's something that, you as a brokerage are going to support. If it is, great. If it's not, no, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the push and pull of this.
Yeah.
This market is crazy. People are going 5, 6, 11 offers and not getting homes. So it's like, what can you do to get your buyer a home?
Yeah. And I see a lot of times where, okay, and again, like the true spirit of our number 4 tip is ask your managing broker. Ask your managing broker. I mean, all deals technically belong to the managing broker.
Yep.
And, the company and the seller or the buyer.
True.
So you got to do what the managing broker says. And that's really what it is. And you should ask your managing broker. You should talk to it. I don't know any managing broker that discriminates. I really don't.
No.
All the managing brokers I know in our marketplace are good, honest, ethical managing brokers.
Yes.
Sometimes there's a mistake here and there, right? But that's in humanity. Every time or every scenario there could be a mistake. But here's the thing. Ask your managing broker. I understand the point of entrapment, but I will also say this. Discrimination is very hard to prove. You would have to, but if you have something, evidence in writing, then by all means, go after that buyer or seller. Deal with that. I think discrimination is wrong. I think it's a horrible thing. It's been going on for a while, and I think it should be done.
Yeah. I mean, I think both of us kind of agree on that. Like, discrimination is a no-go, right? Yeah. But if you have a letter that's pulling the heartstrings of the seller, and not every seller is going to be like that. I think it's what you need to remember. A lot of sellers are going to be bottom line, but some sellers are, they lived in the home for 30 years. They want a family to take it over, or a person to take it over that they know is going to actually enjoy the home and treat it like they did. A home, I think sometimes is very emotional. Yeah. And I think that is where the letters come into play.
I think so. And I think sometimes, well, let's go into our number 3 tip, because I think we're infringing on that right now.
I think
our number 3 tip is back in the old days, I'll say, pre-2000, early 2000s and stuff like that. Real estate agents, it was almost like an unwritten rule. You never wanted the buyer and seller to meet until closing.
So here's the thing where we disagree. I still think that the buyers and sellers should never meet before closing. They should not have any sort of communication, all that kind of stuff, just so that you keep fair housing laws in line and things like that. I think the letters kind of blur that line a little bit. And whether it's good or bad, I'm really not sure. I mean, that's the big thing that we have going on right now with how their little inventory is and how many buyers we have.
See, I agree with that part of it, but I don't believe that it's such a bad thing. I mean, if I'm buying a house from someone, I want to buy a house from someone who who cared about the house, who cared about the house, who loved the house. I want that. I want someone who really enjoyed that property that I'm planning to build a future in and stuff like that. So I don't have a problem with that. And I understand the thought behind, like even agents, let's say a buyer wants to get back into a house after the offer is accepted. Usually we will try to avoid that. It's because we don't want them to get buyer's remorse. We don't want them to back out. We don't want any of those types of things. But quite frankly, the buyer and seller to come together, enjoy each other and like each other and all that kind of stuff, that's good in my opinion, because then the buyer's excited about buying something from someone who really loved the property and stuff like that, and they get to buy that property.
But in my opinion, I don't think that's realistic.
Well, you're wrong.
I think...
I'm just kidding.
I think the buyer and seller meeting beforehand, having that personal relationship, all those kind of things, that is kind of to the detriment of the transaction. Now,
how so?
They want to
give me an example of how that could be a detriment.
The buyer and seller decide they don't like each other, and then all of a sudden they don't want to do something with the inspection response or something like that. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to, right? And so that's why it's very important to keep that wall between the buyer and seller to make sure that we're not discriminating based on any of the protected classes that we have going on, right? And I think that is, I think that's kind of where we're in this gray area right now of, the buyer and seller know more about each other and things like that because we have these letters going on. And I don't think that's necessarily a great thing.
Okay. I can't argue with that. I mean, that's pretty well, that's a fair, it's a fair argument, I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you know what? And I totally get it. And I understand that. But I don't know. It's one of those things. I don't encourage my buyers to write those letters.
Sure.
But if they choose to, I don't push them against it either.
Yeah, and then I think once you have a buyer and you're sending that letter in, then it's up to the sellers, or like the listing agent, right? Like, what do you do with that letter? Is it, I think that's kind of where you prepare the seller ahead of time. Like, do you want to see letters? Do you not, right? If you don't, great. Then I don't have to turn them into you. But I think we have that fiduciary responsibility to our sellers and buyers, like, where do you go with this letter? And I think maybe in this market, it's something that we need to talk about up front. versus something that you wait till a letter comes in to actually discuss?
See, I look at it like this. I think the liability is equal on both sides.
Okay.
I really believe that, because if, let's say, someone sends me one of those buyer love letters, let's say, and it talks about how they belong to one of those protected classes, right?
Okay.
If I choose not to give that to my seller, I would say that's an act of a discriminatory practice right then and there for me not presenting that to my client.
But here's the other thing, like, you need to talk about with your seller in the listing contract, you have to talk about how you cannot discriminate based on XYZ, right?
Yep.
So are you in the right to withhold a letter that talks about familial status or gender status or other things that we have blocked off? And that's kind of the thing where it's like, I think you need to have that conversation previous before you ever put it on the market, so that your seller understands what can and cannot be fair housing discrimination. Okay.
And I will say this, one of our state guidance for our particular state basically said, hey, look, if your seller will not want to see those, get it in writing that your seller says they don't want to see those love letters. You have to have it in writing, by the way, to cover your own butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good word. Yeah.
CYB. Do that. Get that in writing. But again, talk to your managing broker. Get guidance from them. Whatever your managing broker says goes. Do not listen to me or Nicole over your managing broker. Unless I happen to be your managing broker, then take the show as, gospel.
So I think this kind of rolls into
my studio audience better stop distracting me.
Truth. That was 3 because we have 3 studios.
Right? A lot of truth. Truth time. Well, hold on. 2. Jared can do no wrong.
Jared is literally just staring at Craig.
Yeah.
Like they have this connection.
We do an around the world high five. It's mine and my son's thing.
They only do the top, not the bottom. They
this is
never
not going to make it, is it, John?
Just so you know.
This part's not going to make
Anyway.
I'll leave it in. Who cares? It's good.
I think this rolls into number 2, though. Could go either direction. 2. You have to do when you have to explain an escalation clause, you also need to explain
both ways
what the pluses and minuses of letters are to your sellers, right? If you have a letter, you need to explain every single letter and explore every letter. Not like you can't just say, okay, I'm going to get this letter and not that letter, right? You have to see them all. That could go either direction. That's
well, I'm saying if your seller in writing has empowered you not to deliver, and here's another thing too, talk to your managing broker again. If that buyer signs the letter, my argument would be that's part of their offer package if it's signed by the buyer, and technically it probably needs to be signed by the seller.
True, but we have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the seller when we're a listing agent.
Are we protecting them from violating fair housing though if we don't give them a letter?
Yes, we can be, depending on what's in the letter.
I don't know.
Depending on what's in the letter.
That's a weird thing for us to make. We're not a judge or a jury.
That's true.
A real estate agent is not empowered to make legal decisions. We don't have the legal capacity to decide these things. That's why I think some of the guidance put forward from NAR and things like that might not be the exact greatest guidance because, again, you've got to talk to your managing brokers. You have to be very careful about this. This is a big deal.
It is. So how do we protect ourselves, right? I think.
You don't ever discriminate. I think that's the don't discriminate for any reason. Forget 9 protected classes. How about every class? No one. Hey, if this is a good offer, my buyers like it, my sellers like it, it's a good deal.
I think that brings us to number 1, though. Document.
Ooh, we're going. Look, I love how each one just leads right into the next one. 1, document.
Yes, that's
3 documents.
1. Yes. Remember, every managing broker should be telling you to take notes, keep everything in writing, right? Like, hey, here's the seller's letter, or here's the buyer's letter, but XYZ, remember, fair housing laws, all those kind of things, because you're educating your seller. You are okay with that as long as you're educating and documenting why did they take the offer, because it netted them more money, right?
Yeah.
That is an okay platform to take that, not because they had a Hispanic name or they had something else going on. And that's kind of the thing that you need to remember when you're documenting and making sure when they're accepting the offer, why are they accepting the offer?
That's a great point. And I will tell you this. Okay, so I agree with everything Nicole just said. So we can table number 1.
Weird.
I know, right? Not with the rest of them, but this one, yeah. But here's the thing. let's say, what do you do if your client does say that they want to discriminate?
What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to cut them out.
I would.
You were legit supposed to fire them.
Said, hey, I'm not, let's say you take a listing, and let's just say they said, I'm not going to sell to someone of some ethnicity that they don't like.
You are literally
honestly,
supposed
what
to
I would
not
do,
take the listing.
I would release them from the listing if I had them under a listing contract. I would just release them. I'd say, you know what? I don't believe the way you believe, and I'm going to go ahead and release this listing from you and let you go off on your own.
Well, it's not that you even believe what they believe. It's that
I would go that far.
Ethically bound to not discriminate, right? And so
I don't agree with it, period. So I would just say, forget it, you're out.
If you know the seller
this just in, you're out.
If you know the seller is discriminating in any way, shape, or form for your protected classes, you are obligated as a real estate agent to release that listing. That is just hands down what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what you should do.
Yes.
Let it go. You know, you don't need the hassle. Real estate, it's too busy and too fast moving right now to deal with that kind of stuff.
And I think sometimes it's empowering, and it's empowering to fire a client if you need to, based on our ethics and the things that we need to do with each individual client.
I would agree.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of our show. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't. I think you know what? Fair play on all sides is what's the right answer, you know?
It is.
Yeah. Don't discriminate for anything. You know, the best offer should always win, right? But hey, some seller might, for instance, let's look at veterans, for instance, right?
Okay.
I've had sellers in the past that would rather take a veteran buyer over a non-veteran buyer.
And why is that?
Because they were a veteran, they wanted to do that. I don't know. I
Okay.
didn't ask a lot of follow-up questions, but that was their thought or whatever. I presented every offer that came in.
Sure.
Back in those days, we only got one offer. I mean, it wasn't like nowadays where you got 80 showings on a house in one day and you get 6 offers.
Yeah.
You know. So, and then you had to, and that's what's so tough, right? Well, I don't know. We can do a whole nother show on VA and FHA. We'll do a VA show and get a VA lender in here and talk about VA and because it's tough right now. If a property doesn't appraise at or above, the asking price, it's hard for a VA buyer or an FHA buyer to go over asking price. It's difficult right now.
Yeah, I think so. And it's just, the big thing we can do as listing and buyers is making sure that we're doing the proper paperwork, the net sheets for each individual offer, letting the seller know, and then letting the seller make the choice.
Yeah.
You should have no factor in what the seller chooses because we are licensed. We are ethically bound to not break those fair housing laws, and the seller needs to make the choice. It should not in any way, shape, or form be swayed by you.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing that we need to remember in this market.
Good point, Hanson.
Thank you.
Yeah, what a good point.
Yeah.
She's just banging on all cylinders today.
Okay.
Well, all right.
All right.
Firing on all cylinders?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, that's better.
All right. So anyway, thank you guys. Please comment, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff that you're supposed to do, whatever the YouTube stuff is I'm supposed to say.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. If you guys have any ideas for shows and all that kind of good stuff, let us know in comments as usual. And we appreciate you watching.
Yeah, Nicole wants to do a show on, organizing your rock garden next week. So please give us some better show topics, please.
I do not do anything outside, so that is not true.
Right?
In any shape or form.
Why she wants to do that, I don't know. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great time.
We'll see you next
Everyone
Friday.
say hi to Jared. Thanks, Jared, for being here. All right, great time. John, end the show.
Bye, guys.